If you're wanting to make more money in your business, there's a strategy that works every single time for every single business and industry. Today, business coach Mark Daniels shares with us what that is, and it's way easier than you think. Mark, why did you become a business coach?
A good question. Way back in 1999, we went to see Brad Sugars, that's my wife and I, and at that time she was looking for something different, and she became a business coach. And new product, some of the first in the country. It took a little while to get going, so I got the information that she got from training and spent a lot of time. I used to jog in those days. There were cassettes, for anyone that knows what a cassette is, and I listened to the whole 10 days initial training, hours and hours, dozens of hours of training, and I thought, okay, I could help her with the selling side of things. And we seemed to nail that in about a year, 6 months or a year, of getting clients. And then I thought, well, she's got a ton of clients now. We know how to get clients and how to give, more importantly, how to give business owners benefit for their investment and see changes. So it seemed like a natural extension for me to go and do the ActionCoach training, and which I did and never really looked back. Best decision ever.
So you speak to a lot of business owners, over the years that you've been coaching. And business owners have lots of different challenges. What's the one thing that you find that they're often struggling with that they come to you for?
Well, I'm going to cheat and say two. The first one, which I won't go into a little detail, everybody listening to this that owns a business will roll their eyes, team. It's like getting a good team and getting them to do what you want. And that's something we cover in the coaching, obviously. Even if you've got one team member. But I think I wrote a book a couple of years ago, A Year in Profit, and the first chapter I put in it, which is the most important, and if people only ever read one of the 52 chapters, it's the one called Working on Your Business. So the biggest issue people have, I believe, is not stopping long enough to work on their business. So and what we mean by that is not selling another hour of panel beating, not selling another hour of dentistry, but actually stopping long enough to do something that looks at the business so that it doesn't consume them. So hence that being the first chapter in my book, the first thing I get people to do is set aside some time a week, 3 to 4 hours. That seems like a lot, to do high value tasks that only the business owner can do. And the second chapter in my book, which is from the third one, is to set some SMART goals, which is what we do as coaches with them, and obviously hold them accountable going forward to those SMART goals. Simple, but not easy. Those three things. Team, which we cover off as we go, which is always an issue, but really then working on their business and setting some goals so they know some milestones to look for as we walk through with them on their business.
Yeah, you said about 4 to 5 hours a week to work on a business instead of in it. That is a challenge when you've got a business owner that's doing everything. How do they find that time?
Yeah, good. Really good. Another good question. And it's like we live for 4,000 weeks. So I guess the average business owner I work with is maybe in their 40s. So they've done half their time. And the last 1,000 hours probably ain't going to be so great either in the sense of health and stuff. They haven't got much time to get done. So for realising that the finite time, and I've got a simple answer to that: stop watching the news. So there's 5 hours a week. Someone will tell you how many golds the Australians won in the Olympics, or the New Zealanders or Americans or whatever, and you'll find it on an app or something like that. But there's an hour a day that you could set aside. Seriously, there's 5 hours a week. And get up earlier. It's like just get up an hour earlier. And if you're flogged already, really part of what we'll do in the coaching is to find those hours. And really, it's an hour a day, isn't it? Or 45 minutes, or half an hour a day, and maybe an hour or two on the weekend. And even for busy family people, that's kind of be a must, because it's actually slowing down to speed up. Sacrifice that time to start with, and that will come back exponentially down the track for you in life. And 4,000 weeks, got to get on with it.
So let's say we find that 4 to 5 hours a week somehow with those suggestions you've made. What are we working on? What are the key things that you recommend? So for business owners out there listening, where should they start?
So what I do is what we call an alignment, where I'll look, funny word, but aligning what they say they want, and then putting together a step-by-step plan, and that's 3 to 4 hours a week. Would be maybe a little bit of reading. For me, who often don't like to read, hey, great, there's downloads and CDs and podcasts, things to listen to. So getting educated and working a plan of 3 tasks a week. And when we say on, so in is the hour of dentistry, on is sitting back and seeing whether the pricing is correct, whether what our conversion rate from lead, how we're generating our marketing, whether the radio advertising you're paying for friction for is working, or whether that marketing money could be better spent. And I've got hundreds of examples in my mind of where people slowing down enough to just think and work on that business for an hour a day, half an hour a day and a couple of hours in the weekend, allow them to find tremendous leverage in their lives and their business, through their business, because business should be about giving people more life and not a slave to that entity.
That sounds great. So team, you talked about team. So most business owners, often have a challenge with team. Why is that?
Humans are fallible humans, and even more fallible business owners. So do we have a system as business owners to get team, or do we get our aunties, cousins, uncle, someone that just need a little job? Or do we have a system? It doesn't have to be a very complicated system, but I'll spoil things and give away some free stuff here and say Action's got a great system for recruiting. It isn't perfect. No system is perfect because of humans, but recruitment must be around attitude and using a little bit of simple psychometric testing, which is kind of shrinking people, but not. It's finding those people who fit your business. So that isn't about character, because obviously we need to get people with good character and attitude, but a process. So to be fair, I think the systems, when I apply the ActionCoach system to recruiting, I think we get 6.5 to 7 good team members out of 10. We get maybe more. Without using the Action system, it could be as low as 4 out of 10. So it could potentially double the ability to get good team members, and then what to do going forward if they're not 100% with their skill. But as long as they've got good attitude, we can work with that. So it's getting that system in place and stopping long enough to make sure those team members know what they're supposed to be doing. And I've got a saying, everyone craves leadership. And so as a business owner, how do we learn to be a leader if we're just being a manager? And what if we're a quiet person? How do we do that? And so that's part of the coaching as well, coaching the owner to be a real leader.
What do you see are the differences between being a manager and a leader, seeing as you've referenced that?
Yeah, good point. And the literature talks, and there's some good authors out there, Simon Sinek and so forth. But a manager probably has to get people to do stuff by fear or systemization. If you don't do that, that happens. Please do that. Please do that. Pile of instructions. Whereas a leader sets a framework within which good people are, if you like, set free to do the work with, because they know what they've got to do. So, for instance, I just listening to a download when I was driving today, and they talked about Zappos, and of course ActionCoach has a relationship with Zappos, the world's best shoe seller online, and Zappos canned all of their money for conventional marketing and focus it all on customer service, and that therefore means coming and getting good teams. So the team are empowered to make really good decisions without lots of rules. So if there's just one rule, make the customer happy, and probably are following that, the money will follow, and they've got good people, then they don't need lots of rules. So a leader would have a system like that. A manager would say, there's 15 different things. Please come and check in with me, and don't do that, and don't do that. And why are you late? And why are you having morning tea more than we said? And morning tea should be from 10 to 10:10, not 10 to 10:15. That's what a leader has to do. So it's empowering people. Sounds really, sort of waffly, but in a sense that is a system that means that the owner can actually get some more time to work on the business.
Yeah, I remember reading the Zappos book and how they talked about when they relocated the whole business, was it California to the middle of the US? I can't remember where they relocated, but they offered all of the staff, redundancies. They said, look, we're moving. We don't expect you to move, but here's a redundancy. Thanks very much. Or you can relocate and move and join us. And every single employee moved. Their whole family, moved house to still continue to work with the company. I mean, that's a sign of a really good culture, isn't it?
Yeah.
And great leadership.
Yeah, they moved to Vegas. I've been on the tour
Was it?
three times. I've been on that tour, and it's everything they say. and more.
What do you mean tour? Being on the tour?
The Zappos tour. So Zappos will have an in-house tour, and you can visit.
Oh, right.
Walk around
Okay.
Zappos. Visited Zappos headquarters in Las Vegas 3 different times over the last decade.
Wow, amazing. What was the standout for you on that tour?
Just the fun culture and open plan. And if you listen to the book that Tony Shea wrote, the record is, I couldn't believe it, something like 6 hours someone stayed on the phone servicing a customer complaint. So the empowerment and just the culture there. And what also blew my mind is probably 10 years ago their turnover was more than $1 billion when they sold to Amazon. And that's a long time ago. It's just shoes. I mean, you think, how do they do that? So there's something in that empowering team.
And isn't that interesting? 6 hours is for spending the time on a phone with a customer when, most of the things that we listen to in sales books are about, timing that to much shorter, having more conversations, much shorter times for efficiency in sales results. But, that's not necessarily the case. Yeah, I love that. So talk to me about the clients that you work with.
They range from really small businesses in a sort of a global sense of the average New Zealand business. I think 80% of them are 5 or 6 people. Now I've got quite a number of businesses like that. I've got some businesses with 100 people, construction companies that size. So a real range of clients, from single person massage therapists right through to, let's say, the 100-person construction industry business, quite a large insurance broker. You name it. You just sort of think, well, gosh, I never thought I'd be working with that. What's the common denominator? They want to get better. And in fact, my clients are roughly split between people that are, help me get some more money, and the other half that want more time. They're doing really successful, but they need to find the next step to step back and have some more life.
So that's would you say that's one of the things, the differences between a business owner running a small business versus a large business, different challenges that they've mastered, and then moving on to the next step, like team.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, ActionCoach has got a great little model, the book that Dave Sugars wrote called The Business Coach, and he sort of has 6 steps that he talks about, and the most basic one is a bit like the foundation of a house, and I always use that where we look at the financial side of stuff in a non-accounting way. And for me, that's making all of my clients show me within a month where they made more money that month than went out. And we can teach them that, and it's the first time someone's taught them that. Their accountant might give them, at least the accountants, they sort the tax and make sure we don't break any rules, but they don't really teach that basic, how are we going? And so that's, in Brad's book, that's the first one, financial mastery. My people making some money, and if not, we have to fix that. Do they have some goals, some basic goals? We'll look at that next. How's their time management, and how well are they delivering the service? If they are car mechanic, do they leave the radio on the same channel, the seat up the right way, and no grease inside? That's the basics. Well, I mean, everybody fixing the vehicle goes without saying, but those things. The next level we look at, once we've got that sorted, and it sort of contiguous happens at the same time, is marketing, or what's their niche. We're looking at their team and systems, and that's usually the people. We're looking at those 4 areas for the people with a smaller business, and when they've reached the next level, it's what we call synergy, where they're looking to appoint a general manager, and lastly, results is where they may sell their business, or as one of my clients has recently and is still working in it, or franchise it. So those last 2 steps of appointing a general manager or selling or franchising the business don't happen to many businesses, but that's often people want their time back as a work in that area. The other 4 levels are under control.
Building leverage.
Yes.
So this 6 steps really operating system that you're mentioning is, what happens, often is that businesses might go straight to, say, systems, but they haven't actually worked on financial mastery, as an example. Why is it so important to follow the building blocks?
Yeah, I've got a great little metaphor. Snakes and ladders. You played that as a kid? You can't, if you go up that ladder too quickly over 6 steps, if you jump a couple of rungs from the mastering those basics, making sure that money going out, making sure that we know what our value proposition is, if we jump up to systemization, we'll come down the snake very quickly because we can't, it's not logical to jump from step 1 to step 4. And having said that, it's not actually like we're just working on step 1. So we might write some systems, but we need to know we've got more money coming in than going out. We absolutely need to understand that. We need to be able to find that time we talked about earlier. And if I can slip in a little tip, there's a great little time book, Eat That Frog. That's one of the things that I need everybody to read or download. You can download free from Spotify now, the Eat That Frog book. A couple of hours of listening to try and get this time back, and so on. So getting those basics right, if we don't get the basics right, we'll get found out and have to go back to them.
And you slide back down.
That's that snake. And you've got, so it's like a monopoly. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200 until you get those ones. And so I say, I've got a bit of a formula. I say that the financial has to be about 8 or 9 out of 10. The goals, doesn't matter if it's 1 or 2. It's better if it's 6 or 7. Time has to be 5 or 6. Knowing what we're doing, destination, how delivering the basics actually during a business boom, doesn't matter if you don't even get the basics right because there's so few tradespeople or so few dentists or doctors that you'll get work anyway. But when it comes to the crunch, like at the moment with the recession, you've got to have those basics right. But I make sure that I've got in my mind and with the owner that we've got a fair score on those bottom ones, even if it's not perfect before we start doing any major marketing or systemization. I mean, a good example of that is I worked with a spray painter panel beater, and he did 1.2 million and lost 13,000. The accountant just said, "Oh, you need to sell your premises," and he didn't have any equity, so that was well done. And I said, "Let's test and measure. Let's get that basic right in financial mastery. What is your conversion rate?" He said, "What do you mean conversion rate? How many went out of 10?" He said, 9. I said, "The price is too cheap." He said, "No, it isn't. If we put the price up, everyone will believe you have $60,000 of overdraft debt. We put those prices up by 10%. His conversion rate of 9 out of 10 people working with and winning at their jobs dropped to 7 out of 10, but the $60,000 debt cleared in 4 months. What that meant was, because we knew those basics, because we just got a whole lot more work for him, he would have lost he would have lost a lot more money. So we had to get those basics right so that work he was doing was profitable. And so we used some of those simple systems to measure, put some science around it, easy science, made easy for business owners that are busy doing their thing to be able to price right and take a educated risk because we couldn't do another year of 1.2 and losing 13,000.
Isn't it interesting how, as business owners, there is this mindset or fear around raising prices. Why is that? And why is that something that you work on?
It comes from Sunday school or that have thought about money. It's interesting. I've probably worked with 700 businesses in 21 years, and not a single one where we've raised prices has ever been any kickback. And so in my own book, I talk about go 10% or 5% if you're chicken, but just do it. And there's little tables you can find on the internet.
Just do it. I love that. So out of 700 businesses or so that you've worked with over the years, and you've got them all to raise prices, and not one of them have had a challenge with it.
Correct.
Wow, that's amazing.
Not one of them have lost out. And
not lost out. Yeah.
They've a lot of them had challenges, but it absolutely is. I mean, that's chapter 3 in my book. The book I wrote, The Year of Profit, is looking at raising prices because of inflation. We'd barely even standing still. So rule of thumb, 5% to 10%.
Okay. So how much, 5 to 10% is the number that you think that they should raise their prices by? How do you communicate that with customers? How do you recommend with clients?
Yeah, good point. 2 ways, very simple. Either say nothing, because most people don't notice. And for instance, a cup of coffee, I buy a lot of teas and stuff when I drive, and some of them are $5, and some of them are $5.50, some of them are $6, some of them are $4, some of them are $4.50. I'll taste the same. In the restaurants I work with, when they put the prices up by 10%, we just don't tell anybody and get on with it. And guess what? A couple of people might go, "Has that gone up?" And you go, "Yes, we script that. Yes, I'm glad you noticed we've moved prices now," because we haven't. moved them for a year, and we've had to move a little to keep pace. Now, the odd person will go and get cheap coffee, but that's just it. The second way is to actually just send a little note out, and I've got a little template there. Hey, we haven't raised prices now for X amount of months or years. With the recent price increases, inflation, we had to move a little to keep pace. And the third rule around that is your staples, so you don't put your bread and milk up, because people come in for those, but you can be on an average 5 to 10% with other product in the business.
Okay, that's a good point. I want to just you to expand on that a little bit more. So don't raise the core price or product that you offer, but what are the ancillary products around that you can raise? And give me an example of that, Mark.
So maybe people call in for a coffee, the example of coffee. So maybe we wouldn't put it out because they come in and they buy cafe food. So maybe if the draw card is that core thing, we'd leave that the same. And it'd be analysing the sale. So if the sale is $5 for a coffee and $10 for a roll and another $3 for a sweet, maybe analysing that, putting those things up. It's just a matter of, we say the word test and measure, but it's trying something to see what happens. But overall, in almost every situation, a price rise of 5 or 10%. There is riders to that. I mean, I could think of people going, that wouldn't work in my industry. And that's the thing I hear all the time. Our industry is different. It wouldn't work in our industry. And I say, so you're so close to break even, you might as well just give it a fly, because if you don't, you're going to go out of business anyway. And part of that is also back it up with quality and service. So if it's a good service, people will pay. We all pay more for it. We're all prepared to pay a little more.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. And so out of those clients that have raised prices, what types of businesses have they been that you've worked with?
Panel beaters, builders, motor mechanics, insurance, list of clients, massage therapists, cafes, you name it, we've worked with it over the years. It's strange. I think, how would they ever want a business coach? But everybody needs those same things, time and money. And if they reach their own point where they can't see, engineers, I'm just trying to think of there's this concrete plant that I'm working with, the concrete places and concrete block builders.
Yeah, so any business, you're saying, really?
Anything and everything.
Applies to any business. Okay, love that. And Mark, talk to me about profit. Like, what are the things that you work with clients on to help them make more profit in their business?
Yeah, this is an absolute ton. And so the book that I wrote, Year of Profit, all comes out of Brad Sugar's material from Brad Sugar's 5 ways chart, where there's 400 plus strategies there, and then there's a 4 ways chart where there's 80 strategies, and the difference between 4 and 5 ways is the 5 ways is mathematical strategies. For instance, the price increase, or getting a flyer going, or a Facebook campaign go, where you might put in investment of $500, measuring what comes out. So getting a strategy going. And the 4 ways is doing something which is often will save time or systemizes things, but ultimately that ends up in profit. And it comes back in a sort of a virtuous loop. You said, how do you get that profit? You need to go back to that step 1, time to work on your business, and step 2, what are my goals? What am I here for? And then the next thing is to start applying those strategies. So working with a coach, 3 homeworks a week, and one of them will almost certainly be a marketing one of some sort. If for no other reason as a coach, we've got to pay for ourselves. So we've got to be able to find that fee fairly quickly with some marketing strategies. And there might even be money-saving strategies. So talking about the 4 ways, some of those is looking to see where there's wastage in the business. There's a tremendous amount of wastage in any business. So we can stop that bleeding. There's a lot of money sitting in the account. Brad talks about market share versus wallet share. Market share is, I've got a business that turns over 10 mil. Wallet share is, but it actually might be better having a business that turns over 5 and keep $1 million rather than 10 and keep $500,000. So it's making sure that it's sanity, not vanity. Sanity being cash. What are we keeping, not what are we turning over?
So can you just explain to me the 4 ways in a little bit more detail?
Yep. So the 4 ways is not necessarily monetary strategies that we'd employ. So, for instance, how we answer the phone would be a four-way strategy, I would argue. It's a system to answer the phone. In fact, I'll give you a better one. The only client I've ever worked with where we wrote a very long system was a property land value. So they would value properties, and they had a limited number of valuers, and so we couldn't get more. So what we did is write actually quite a long flowchart. It was many pages long to give to assistants who weren't valuers to see step-by-step things that they could do in the process. For instance, go and check out sales in that area, go and research the land title, go do this, go do that, go and lodge different things. What that did had the effect of that four-ways task of writing out quite a lengthy flowchart meant that we could employ somebody for half the cost of the valuer, and the valuer had double the time now. So a very economical thing to give us more valuation time. That system wasn't, we put an ad out here and we just made a lot of money from getting more work. It was stopping to systemize something which ultimately doubled the capacity of that valuer or that highly skilled person, so that we could basically double their charge out hours.
Okay, so that was step number 2 of the 4 ways. What was 3 and 4?
So there's the distribution and delivery. How well are we doing what we're doing? Systems and technology. It's amazing. You can see I've got grey hair, but I ask most people I work with are using ChatGPT, and they go, chat what? And so systems and technology, people and education, and so what are we doing with our people? Comes back to that people thing. And the last one is testing and measuring. So busy in our business that we didn't stop long enough to realise that we're doing 100 jobs a year, but 30 of them aren't making any money. So when we back costs, it's like, what's happened here? There's 3 jobs, 30% of jobs aren't paying. So how do we fix that? So those 4 areas are things that not necessarily, as I say, doing a great marketing campaign or putting price up by 10% that month instead of turning over all revenues of 300,000, we've got 330 to 30k. That's immediate, but these other ones are less immediate, but actually quite impactful if we can stop long enough to work on them and identify which ones, which your coach will do, help you work out where to go for first for the best bang for buck.
Yeah, it's interesting, the test and measure, and with step number 4, I mean, like what you said with that client that was, turning over 1.2, I think you mentioned, but not making any profit. If you don't look at the numbers to identify that, what's the point of being in business? Like you said, business should give you more life. Yeah, great. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Okay, let's jump into 3 quick fire questions. You ready?
Yeah.
What's your favourite business book?
Well, I used to read the E-Myth. Brad got us to read the E-Myth Revisited, and then Brad's book, which is similar, The Business Coach. But if I had to pick one, it'd probably be what got me going, which is Tom Hopkins' book. Any books on Tom Hopkins on selling. If you can't sell, you can't end up working. So knowing how to sell, and I think selling is helping, not selling, asking good questions and helping people. So Tom Hopkins' book, I've got some here. It is. Let's grab my bookcase. This one here. What's it called? How to Master the Art of Selling by Tom Hopkins. You see, she's pretty battered and bruised. Just did a lot of reading and marked all through in pink and orange. So that one there.
An oldie but a goodie. And who's been the best mentor or coach for you throughout your career?
It had to be Brad, and you might think it's pain me to say that, but in a sense, that's changed my life. Bumping into Brad Sugar's making me think differently. He's been very kind and generous with providing me with the system, so it's a privilege to work for Action. And so Brad, number 1.
Okay, great. Do you have a number 2?
I think the Tom Hopkins one there would be, I've been to see Tom. Actually, Tom and Brad spoke on the stage about 20 odd years ago together. And people like him and maybe Brian Tracy, some of those guys, the old guys, oldies but goodies. Yep.
Yeah, great. And what's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
I think it's to have an expansive vision. It's like, what would you do if you couldn't fail, if you knew you couldn't fail? And I wish they taught me that when I was 16, to write down big goals. There's not much I've written down that didn't turn up. And, of course, you don't just write it down and wait. You write it down and move. So the Quakers have a good saying, when you pray, move your feet. What they mean by that is when you want something, you can go do something about it. Write it down and do something about it. So it's that expansive goals, because imagine if you couldn't fail. And what if I set a goal one year, about 12 years ago, to run 24 half marathons, and I failed. I only ran 20, but I haven't run 20 since. So set big goals and see where it takes you.
Love that. Mark Daniels, thanks for joining us from New Zealand today.
Welcome.
Michelle Adams, your host here. Hats off to you for committing to your learning by listening to this podcast. And if you'd like some help implementing some of these strategies, then click the link in the description to find your local action coach. They can help you put these strategies into action and take your business and your life to the next level. In the meantime, like and subscribe so that you're the first to get our next episode. We'll see you soon.